All right, we're going to begin. If you guys have any questions throughout, just wait until the end and I will allow you to use your microphones, or you can just put it in the chat box and I can answer that way. You also can email me at Katie, Katie, at topscorewriting.com if you have any questions. Sometimes we go through all of this information and then later on you have questions that come about or whatever, please feel free to email me. All right, so welcome to your December monthly meeting. We're going to be pretty quick with things today, but you made it to December, so congratulations, guys. I'm sure that you're very, very excited for your holiday break. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about pacing, so focus on the plan for the new year, our boot camp, as well as our kindergarten curriculum that was just launched this week. We have our student self-assessments. We're going to be really focusing on color coding and checklists, making sure that you're peer editing. Remember, you guys don't want to be the teachers so much anymore at this point in the year. You want your students to be the teachers and doing most of that work. Using student checklists to guide independent writing, engaging writers through fun writing experiences, part 3, and then any question and answers. So Q&A at the end. So it should be about 20 minutes. You will receive at the end of this the recorded version. So just letting you know, we are recording, but you will have all this information sent to you. So pacing. You got to keep going when it comes down to pacing and staying on track if you are a tested grade level. I tell teachers all the time that if you are a tested grade level, you should be at this point in the year finishing section 2, which is the end of text-based expository writing. If you're in text-based expository and you still need a few more weeks after winter break, that's totally fine. But you want to be finishing section 2 right about now. And starting section 3, which is argumentative writing, sooner rather than later. I always started as myself as a 4th grade teacher. I always started the second week I got back from winter break. Now, keep in mind that section 3 is pretty much set up identical to section 2. So it's set up identical to text-based expository. However, in section 3, now they have to state their opinion. So it's argumentative, but it's the same structure. So if your kids mastered section 2, section 3 should go quicker because it's more so of a review, right? If you are doing assessments, so if you're finishing the end of a section, if you're finishing section 2, and you're doing assessments, you are checking for strengths and weaknesses, you are progress monitoring, you are conferencing with kids. That being said, I always tell teachers, do not over assess. Do not do too many practice tests because you don't want to do so much testing that your kids don't really care about the real test when it comes around in the spring. So if you're going to do an assessment at this time of the year, right at the end, right before winter break, I would do an assessment 1 and then focus on that one and really peer edit, revise it, check it over, make sure that students have all of those skills that you just taught in that section, but I wouldn't do multiple of them. Another thing that you need to start thinking about with your colleagues is to start thinking about your focus plan for 2026. I would have a plan in place right now before you leave for winter break so that when you get back, you can, get going right away. Because you know that there's a lot of skills that need to be taught. Some of you may be in states that also test for narrative. So if you have to have exposure, or your students should have exposure to text-based expository, text-based argumentative, and narrative, you then have to make sure that you're getting through all 3 of those genres by the springtime. So that may, change your plans a little bit as far as how much time you're going to spend on certain skills, as well as making sure that you get to everything that could possibly be on your test. So make sure you have a focus plan. I always tell teachers to plan backwards in their calendars. So you want to plan backwards from like the first week, second week of March up until January when you get back from winter break. Because what happens if you plan forwards is that typically you have a few lessons that are stragglers that you need to kind of fit in because you'll end up having 5 or 6 leftovers that you need to fit in later on and you have to go back and put them in. If you work backwards, then you make sure you get through everything that you need to get through. So Plan backwards with your colleagues. Make sure you're skipping any lessons your kids have already mastered. For instance, introduction paragraph. If your kids spend a lot of time in section 2 doing introduction paragraph, they know introduction paragraph. That really doesn't change. So you may want to spend maybe one day as a review, but you should keep on moving because those types of things, transition words, indenting, any of those things that your kids have mastered, I would not do those. I also would not do all of the practice tests. You don't need to do all of the practice tests because you don't want to burn them out before the real test. So focus plan, make sure you're planning with your colleagues, make sure everybody knows what they're doing. I do have accelerated pacing guides that I can send you guys, which I think they're going to actually be in the email after, like the follow-up email after this meeting. So check that. There should be accelerated pacing guides. But those have our most important lessons that you should be focusing on if you're a tested grade level from now or from the end of winter break until testing time. So just keep that in mind, accelerated pacing guides, if you feel like you are off track and you need to get back on track. These are what the accelerated pacing guides look like. You can see the text sets that you'll need and all of the most important lessons. This is a grade 4. Yes, they are edition specific. So nationwide and then specifically to Florida, make sure you are using, if you are outside of Florida, you're using the nationwide ones. If you're in Florida, you're using the Florida ones. They are available for grades 2 through 10. A lot of grades 2 and 3 are not tested. That being said, those are our most important lessons that you should teach before the next school year. But overall, these are the most important lessons for testing to make sure that your kids understand all of those skills that they're going to need for that state assessment. Oh, here we go. Links to boot camp guides will be included in the meeting follow-up. So you will be getting those boot camp accelerated pacing guides in your follow-up email. All right, moving forward, we just launched kindergarten this week. It was Monday we launched it. It's pretty awesome. So we are taking quotes for that. Shipping will not take place for kindergarten until the 1st of January. So this is what kindergarten looks like, just so that you guys have an understanding of what's included. We're really excited about it though, because we said we would never, ever, ever, ever do kindergarten. Here we are launching kindergarten. So section 1 for kindergarten is oral storytelling. So we're using picture prompts, storyboards, and storytelling cards. Super cute. Just starting the year off where they're actually just orally telling stories. Section 2 goes into writing a sentence. So understanding what makes a complete sentence, learning about different types of sentences, and then planning and writing our own sentences using a PWS outline. P standing for picture, so they need to distinguish the picture. Then they write the word, fish in this case, and then they write a sentence, that's what S stands for, so a sentence about that picture. So we're writing a sentence next. Then we go into sections 3 and 4. So kindergarten is slightly different. We start off with narrative writing in section 3 and then expository argumentative prompts in section 4. No text at all for kindergarten. So sections 3 and 4 is writing a paragraph. So we're learning to use a picture outline, writing a paragraph using box paper, multiple exemplars to use for modeling, and then editing and revising lessons included as well. So kindergarten, we have a section 5 as well. It has all of these extras, just like our section 5 and all of our other curriculums. So kindergarten is available. If you are interested, please feel free to contact me at katie@topscorereading.com. I can send you the link for getting a quote. Or if you're just looking for more information on it, I can totally do that for you as well. So kindergarten launched. We're very excited. It's a big deal. Student self-assessments. So I told you it's really important that students go back and check their work. So students should be self-assessing daily, looking, it doesn't matter what they're working on, if it's just introduction paragraph or it's just conclusion paragraph or it's just topic sentences, whatever they're working on, they need to go back, revise, check it, make sure they have all of the components, and make sure they have capital letters and punctuation. That is huge. Doesn't matter if you're in 2nd grade or if you're in 10th grade, I'm seeing those same issues with grammar. 5 minutes or less a day because we know that we just don't have enough time to do any more than that. Provide a key and highlighters, colored pencils or crayons. Color coding is huge. They like it. I always tell teachers as well, you should have a color coding system for your school so that when students are going from grade level to grade level, they know the colors and they don't change those colors. So color coding is huge for a visual for the students, but also a great visual for teachers to see if students have everything that they need. Direct students to color code their own writing, provide 2 minutes for revising. Just make sure that they're going back to check because that is a strategy that they need for life. Not just for this test, but they need to do that daily just so that they get used to using that strategy. Here is color coding to self-assess. So we train teachers and students, right? Because it's super helpful as a visual for both of us. To self-assess structure, so the components of an essay. So in this case, this is their introduction paragraph. They're color coding their 3 components, which are a hook, their 3 reasons, sentence, and a closing statement. So pink, blue, and yellow. We also train students to color code their elaborative techniques. So paraphrased evidence in green, own thoughts and ideas in pink, quoted evidence in blue. So we want to see a balance of these 3 colors. Therefore, they have a balance of those elaborative techniques within their paper. Ways to utilize the checklist. So these checklists, they're fantastic. I always would make like 100 copies and put them at the back table for my own 4th grade students because students would use them to self-assess a part of an essay, self-assess an entire essay. They would use it as a guide while they were actually writing. They would use it for peer editing, all of that. So these are great. However, I was just meeting with a group of teachers yesterday down in Broward County here in Florida, Fort Lauderdale area. And they were telling me that this can be slightly overwhelming for students in their classrooms. So I always tell teachers, if these 25 things on this are too overwhelming, make your checklist or modify your checklist based upon your expectations for your students. You may have maybe 2 or 3 different checklists based on levels within your classroom. Because I know kids see something like this, and if it's overwhelming, they put their hands in the air and they just say, I don't want to do it. But if you modify this, and for their introduction paragraph, they just have 3 things, like a hook, there are 3 topics and a closing statement, and that's all it says on there, or they have their hook and just their 3 topics, then it's less overwhelming, less stressful for them, and they're more willing to do it. So modify the checklist if you need to. When I say modify, I say take the checklist and go to a Word document or a Google Doc and just make a checklist for your kids. So modify it based upon your expectations for your students because it will be less overwhelming for them. But they should be using the checklist to peer edit and edit their own papers so that you're not doing so much of the work anymore. All right, engaging students through fun writing experiences. At this time of the year, they get squirrely. They're excited about the holiday season. They're excited about break. So you may have to put forth some fun activities in order to get any writing out of them. So we have 2 activities that are in section 5 of our curriculum. If you go into section 5, some teachers have never even gone into our section 5. It's all test prep and games. So we have what we call race against the clock in section 5. You're going to have students read a text set and a prompt. You're going to get the timer ready and tell students they will have 10 minutes to plan. So you're going to give them the text set and the prompt. You are going to have them plan on their own. So you're going to set the timer. You're going to say on your mark, get set, go. And in 10 minutes, they should have a plan in front of them. So when the timer goes off, hands go up in the air. You're going to walk around and you're going to check every student's plan to see if they have a plan. It looks like, your expectations of what a plan looks like. And if they have it, you're going to give them a piece of candy, or you're going to give them a raffle ticket, or you're going to give them class money or some sort of little incentive. So they're given the opportunity for a prize 6 different times. 1 for planning, 1 for intro, 1 for T1 or R1, 1 for T2 or R2, 1 for T3 or R3, and then a conclusion. So you can have this race against the clock activity go on for a couple days, right? Because it may take you a couple days in order to get through every single paragraph. So every single time students are writing, you're setting a timer based upon what you think that they should be writing that paragraph in. And you time them, and when the timer goes off, you're going to check around the room. It's great because it creates competition. Once you set a timer and you say on your mark, set, go, it's now a game, right? So it's something fun and it gets them to write. You also will notice that when you say on your mark, set, go, it will be dead silent in your classroom because they're so competitive and they want to win so badly. So this is a great activity that you can do for the last week before you go on to break to get students to write a complete essay. You write, they write. This is great at the end of certain sections so that you can practice certain skills and check to see if students understand it. So it's you write, they write. You're going to have your own prompts and passages, and your students are going to have their own prompt and passages. So you're going to say to them, all right, you're not writing anything. You are just going to watch me write my introduction paragraph. So you're going to write your first introduction paragraph. You're going to make mistakes on purpose. You're going to go back and erase. You're going to think aloud. You're going to problem solve, and you're going to show them all the strategies that they would be doing if they were writing an introduction paragraph. So they're watching you underneath the document camera as you write your introduction paragraph for your prompt with your passages. Then you're going to say, all right, I just wrote my introduction paragraph. Now it's your turn to write your introduction paragraph. And so when they go to write, you're going to set a little timer and you're going to say, all right, write your introduction paragraph. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you're going to go walk around and check to see if they have introduction paragraph and if they're using the same strategies. Now you want them to have their own passages and prompt because they would be copying exactly what you just did if they don't do that. You know, kids. So make sure that they're doing and just using the strategies that you're teaching them with their own passages and prompt. So you write, then they write. Once you write the introduction paragraph, they write the introduction paragraph. Then you go into your T1 or R1 paragraph and you're going to problem solve. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to go back and find really great evidence. You're going to explain what you're doing. And once you write your T1 paragraph, you're going to say, all right, I just wrote my T1 paragraph. Now it's your turn to write T1. So really, it's you do, they do, you do, they do, so that they're seeing how they complete a full essay, just like you would do it, but with their own passages and prompt. Lastly, our Top Score Writing VIP Teachers Facebook group. We have the 12 days till winter break going on right now. If you are not on Facebook, on our Facebook group, please get there, join, because there's lots of great things that we're giving away. Fun things, not just teacher things like $100 at Amazon, fun things. So check that out. It's going on right now. We want you to win. That would be awesome. Are there any questions? Please feel free to ask anything in the chat box, or I can allow you to talk if you would like to. If not, you can head off. And I wish you a fabulous holiday break. You only have a couple more days, so good luck to you. I promise you, all of this writing stuff will be fantastic when you come back, but enjoy your break. You deserve it. Are there additional prompts for grades so they're not redundant year to year? Yes, you should have different prompts every single year. So there's different prompts, different passages for every single grade level. If you would like more on that and would like to speak with me, email me at Katie, Katie, at topscorewriting.com. This is my email right here. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, guys, we'll have a great winter break. Thank you so much for attending.